We are live.
There you go.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Jane. Yes, hi, everybody. We're live now from both Victoria, BC, and where are you, Jane?
Porto, Portugal. It's
Porto,
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Okay, so and it's 10 a.m. on October 3rd, 2022 for us here in Victoria, BC. So you've come to the Victoria Real Estate Show. We're going to be talking real estate today. Jane and I meet every week on Mondays to talk about this. And today's topic is going to be around some timing and strategies on buying and selling homes when you have to do both, how to time the market. We can also include, we're going to try and keep this one short today, but maybe we can also include not just if you have to buy and sell, but if you're just selling or just buying, how to kind of know when the right time might be. So.
Okay.
And then, of course, we always talk stats before we get going into the meat of our show. So, Jane, do you want to just jump right in? Because I know that you...
Sure.
Yeah? Okay. So let's do this. Jane, why don't you take away the stats?
Okay, hold on a second. I don't have my glasses here.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. So net unconditional sales for September 2022 is 410. That's compared to 761 for September 2021.
Right.
So these are like end of market sales. We don't have the total stats, right?
Right. So we're early October. We don't yet have the month end stats from the real estate board that we go over in more detail. So we'll probably do that next week. But this does show us the full month of September 2022 and 2021. And I will say, I believe August's sales were around 300, weren't they? It was really low. So we are up over August, but obviously down and have been continuously down over the last number of months over the equivalent month the year before.
Yeah. It would be interesting to look at these compared to a few years ago and just see how we are compared to like a normal market. We're comparing to a very active market last year, right? Like one of the best markets ever.
Yeah, exactly. And our active listings, which, so I'm jumping down a couple of steps here, but our active listings at 2,300 currently, which looks like it's just stunningly much larger than September 2021, which was 1,124, is still historically low.
Yeah.
So,
and the new listings are also low at, I think they're about average 1,155. That's compared to 978 last year. So last year we had less listings and more sales. This year we have less sales and more listings.
People were having a hard time understanding, or I think last year, and what we're partly talking about today is, how and why to time when you put your property on market. And people don't always do what's best for them, I think, because they're different timing and motivations and understandings. But yes, it's one of the better times to sell would have been last year, and now in maybe a less opportune time to sell. Although if you have to sell, it's always the time to sell. It's this year, and yet more people are listing. So
right
now, in the last 7 days, we go down to Market Watch. We've had 241 new listings go on market in the last week. And of the full inventory of listings that was available for market, 107 went pending, meaning that people had agreed to unconditionally purchase them.
Right. And there was I think because we were reaching the end of the market, at the end of September, there were a lot of price decreases. So we're up at 137. So that's more price decreases than went pending. I think that's the first time I've seen that in years. And no price increases. 4 back on market and solds are at 263. So those transactions usually happen probably in August.
Yeah. And more properties expired than went pending. So we had 110 properties expire. 5 properties were just withdrawn, meaning they've come off market voluntarily by the seller, as opposed to just the contract expired and it came off market that way. And of
Yeah.
those 110 expireds, of course, some of those will then be counted in the new listings because generally they tend to expire and then get relisted again if the seller wants to continue to sell. Sometimes with the same agent, sometimes with a different one.
So I just want to say that now is a time that I always say to buyers, if you're on the market, likely you're motivated to sell, and so let's get your property listed, and it will sell before Christmas. If you a lot of people take their homes off the market this month and next month because they're getting ready for the Christmas season, or they'll wait to the new year or whatever. But your chances of selling right now are actually pretty high.
I always feel like, the analogy I always use is, you can't catch a fish if you don't have your hook in the water, right? So if you want to sell, you've got to have your home listed. The timing of it, there's going to be less buyers out there perhaps in December. That's traditionally a time when properties are really not a lot of listings, but not a lot of buyers, but the proportion is still kind of the same.
Yeah.
So less listings to compete with you, even though there are less buyers.
Exactly.
Okay. So today we are talking about kind of timing the market. And I don't know about you, Jane, but right now with a lot of buyers kind of trying to watch and see what's happening, it's a funny thing when markets are sort of softer, there's less urgency. People are more willing to sit back and wait. And so it kind of creates this ongoing self-fulfilling system of people waiting. So the stats don't get any better, and they wait longer and the stats don't get any better. Yeah.
So I had an interesting situation. So I had this is interesting as a listing agent. You have a property that's listed, and you have somebody who's kind of sitting in the wings and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And then you have somebody else who just shows the property and writes the offer. And what happens is when you're a listing agent and you're aware that somebody's just waiting and waiting and waiting, when they bring you the offer, you're like, how motivated are you really to have this property, versus the person who just shows the property and then writes the offer, right?
Okay, yeah. So this gets into some of the nuances of, how do we advise our clients and what are we taking from an offer that you can read a lot more deeply into an offer than just the black and white on the paper of the contract. So how many questions were asked before the people that brought that offer? And were they, well, again, are they nibbling the hook or are they chomping down hard?
Yeah.
Right. So, and from that, you've got to understand how it is that, decide whether or not you're going to work with those buyers who are very, very cautious, or maybe try to continue to work with others.
So I think there are two types of buyers. We can go to the presentation if you want, but there are two types of buyers. So there's the researchers that just research so much, they're afraid to make a decision. And I found for them, especially during the COVID years, they were really hesitant to write an offer because they didn't know where the market was going, and they were analyzing it. And then the market went up and they got priced out. And now when the market's slower, again, the same thing, they're analyzing, oh, the market, maybe it's stabilizing, maybe it's going down, what's happening with interest rates, and they get caught up in all the minutia. And again, they don't write the offer. You don't get the property if you don't write the offer.
Right. Paralysis by analysis. And I find, and I don't want to out anybody, but I find that there are certain almost there are certain careers that people tend to choose that make them, you can tell they're a little bit more cautious or a little more detail oriented, and their strategy and approach is going to be different than someone else who maybe is just going to take a lot of risk and jump at it. And people who take the risk, they have a higher chance of reward, but also a higher chance of failure. In the markets, as they have been, those people who are risk averse haven't done so well. Those people who are happy to jump in and take risks seem to have done well. It doesn't mean that's always the case, but do listen to and trust your agent. I've had conversations with people who have been, I've had conversations over years with people who may have not been wanting to talk to me about taking action, haven't taken action, and now they come to me and say, I really wish I'd listened to you years ago. But, you know,
It's not a good feeling.
over time, we can tell you that property values historically will double every 10 years. And so in the grand scheme of things, when you zoom out and look at the big picture, you're going to do okay, even if in the short term you lose. Yeah, let's
Yeah,
move it on.
agreed.
Okay. Okay. So a couple of things. I mean, should you buy or sell first? You have a property and you want to buy another property, you need to make a change in your life. What are you going to do? What's the strategy? Do you sell first and then buy something, but maybe you're not going to find what you were looking for? Yes, Jane.
Okay, exactly. That's a great point. Like, do you look for the ideal property and then list your home? What is the disadvantage of that? Right? Like the
Yeah.
disadvantage of that is you may not be ready to go to market when you have like when you need to sell. And sorry, the lighting here is crappy.
It's
Now it
okay. You're
looks
in Portugal. It's all good.
okay. Or do you like I find that generally is not a great strategy. And what I tell people, I mean, we give away a lot of information, but what I tell people is list, get your home ready for listing. Get your like maybe we don't list now, but maybe we get it ready when the sun is shining in your living room. It happened with my listing on Vancouver. And then we pick the time that the house goes on the market, and we can be very intentional about it all.
True. And that's a great point because, you know, there are people out there who have been looking or thinking that when they find the right house, they're going to buy it, but they can't afford to own two homes at the same time. And they find the perfect house. They've been looking for a long time. They go to open houses. They're not really kind of engaged with their agent in a high degree, but suddenly you get the phone call and they say, I found my dream home. I really want it. Let's get going. And but they say, but I've got to sell my house first. And then you have to come up with a value on their home. You have to help them prepare their home for sale, and maybe it needs a lot of work to get it prepared, and they are not timed well to make that quick transition. Whereas if they approach first, they get everything aligned and ready. When they find that right home, that's going to put them in a much stronger position, even if they have to sell first before they buy.
And it takes a lot of pressure off, and it just speaks to really like why you need to have a relationship with your realtor.
Yes,
Like
we keep
way
saying,
before you want to sell.
yeah, and this is why I do have conversations with people who have not bought and have had conversations over years with these people. And that's fine, you know, like let's continuously help to coach them to get in the right place. Some people you'll have a conversation with, things happen really quickly, and sometimes people take some time. But that's all partly their own personality and their own, again, aversion to risk and their own needs and motivations. So buy or sell first, it kind of depends, right? It's going to depend on your risk tolerance, which we were just talking about, and your own personal circumstances and finances. So these answers should all be taken with a grain of salt in terms of like best practice and your own personal situation.
And I would say it depends on the market. Like um during COVID, when we knew that things were selling within a day or a week, then those people willing to take the risk, it was an opportunity for them to find the home because it was so hard to find homes, and
Yes.
then list their home and sell it and dovetail the dates. However, some people got caught out the spring when they bought without selling first, and then all of a sudden they own two homes. So
Yes.
really, you've got to look, where is the market, where is it peaking? Look at the line of where the market's going and where do you fit in, because there's nothing, if you list before, if you buy before you sell, you're more likely to take a lower offer.
Yes, if you buy before you sell, if you have something that you're really trying to accomplish or get to, something you're trying to bridge and jump to, you're going to be a little more motivated. And obviously, if you have to sell in order to buy something, when an offer comes through, you're going to look at it a lot more seriously and maybe take less. Absolutely. Yeah. So scenario one would be we're in a seller's market, which is what we were in the last couple of years. And in that case, although there is some risk involved, as Jean was just saying, as prices are going up over time, it makes sense to buy first and then sell later, because you can buy a home and then when prices were going up, it felt like $10,000 a week, at least a month. You could buy a home and then get your home on market and get more for your home. In all things being equal, you get more for your home and end up with more money in your pocket and bridge that. The risk is, of course, that somewhere along the way the market changes dramatically. And we've had events like 9/11, which sort of throw a big curveball that nobody was expecting. It's really impossible to say where the peak or tip of the market is or where the bottom of the market is. And this is, the converse of what we're talking to buyers about today. So it's really impossible to know where these tops and bottoms are, but we can say that in general, if it's looking like it's going to be going up over time, and it has been, it's a better idea to buy first and then sell.
Right.
Comment on that, Jane?
Yeah, because you're gonna, if you see a house that you really like, then you're likely to offer on it. And Lorraine is saying with more listings now on the market, buyers have more choice on properties. But
Absolutely.
in a seller's market, you do not have the choice. So you want to be able to find the home and then list yours. But that being said, as a listing agent, we are always going to make sure that we are covering our clients' butts. And so we want to make sure that, their house is saleable. And so what you can do is ask your realtor to continually doing market updates, like monthly
Right.
market updates.
Yeah. Buying first means that you have to eventually close on that purchase and pay the money, right? So in this line here, we've got buy and then sell. Buy is actually agree to buy, and then sell is agree to sell. And at some point further on, there has to be a date where you actually hand over keys to your home and get the keys to the new home. And if you can align that correctly, you're going to be getting the money from your sale first, and then purchasing the home you agreed to buy earlier after that. And that dovetails really well. And there's no bridge financing required, and there's no getting a second mortgage or going to your parents or family or friends to borrow money or going to the loan shark. Because if you do buy first, you've agreed to purchase, and if you can't get your home sold, you're going to be in some trouble.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to scenario 2.
I just want to say too, like, this is what we were saying, if the market just changes really quickly, you're going to be selling for less than you bought or equivalently. Scenario 2, we're now in a buyer's market, which is what we're kind of feeling today. And so makes a lot more sense to sell first. You have a more selection, as Lorraine was referring to. So there's less risk of selling and not finding something you want to buy. And you also have a better chance of getting more for your home and paying less for the home you're buying.
Right, because as the market goes down, you're going to get this amount, and then over time, it's going to go to the next level, and you're going to get less. So the biggest mistake people make when they're listing in this market is they list too high, and they go, well, I'm going to negotiate down. Well, the thing is, they're going to follow the market down. So if you look at steps on an escalator, and the escalator is moving down, if you list 2 steps down and get slightly ahead of the market, then you can sell it more quickly, and you'll be more likely to get your price or above asking, because you're going to look like a good deal when you're priced less than what the current market is. And this is a hard job as a listing agent, and I would say this is where wisdom and experience in previous markets helps, because we don't get freaked out.
No, we've seen this before. We can advise our clients from a place of experience to say, like, this, it may seem counterintuitive, but you're not selling your home in isolation, and in a market that's going down. Now, we don't want to be contributing to a free fall here, but at the same time, there are people who are going to be more motivated to sell, perhaps, and as time goes on and the average price goes down, then the next property coming up listed is going to be more likely priced more competitively than yours. Your home is going to be one of the benchmarks that new people coming on market are going to look at to decide how they're going to strategically price their home. So
yeah, and a great way to think of this is to look at condo buildings,
yeah.
and you have like 10 units on the same floor,
Mm-hmm.
and one is priced here, and then somebody else comes in and prices down here. All of a sudden, the guy's like, "Oh my goodness, I got to get down there."
Yeah, and if they do, so they started here, somebody prices here. If they come down to here, they've just come to this level, and they're still just on even footing with this person. And they kind of need to come even lower to make them, if all things being equal, if they're exactly the same unit with the same outlook and same floor plan, buyer's going to look at whatever is the lower price. But again, they're looking at the big picture of everything else everywhere from all their choices. But anyway, so let's move on from there. So you're in a buyer's market, prices are slowly moving down. It's a better idea to sell first and then buy. And that also helps you with the money situation because you'll have agreed to sell. You will have a firm binding contract. You can line up the dates on your purchase, and you will have the money at purchase time to complete.
And the other thing is, it's kind of like going into a candy store. Like, there's nothing worse than going into a candy store and guessing how much money you have in your pocket, and then picking out the stuff and getting to the cash register and hoping you can pay. But if you actually sell first, you'll know how much money you have to spend, and then you can do it accordingly when you're purchasing.
That's right. So in scenario one, where you're buying first and then selling, you don't know exactly how much your home's going to sell for. And there are situations where you put your home on market, you've done everything right, you've had it looked at. Some people get a pre-inspection on their home, some people don't. But maybe there's an offer on your home and there's an inspection and they find a major problem in your home that nobody had guessed at or anticipated. It will really bring down and diminish the value of your home, and you may have to sell for less than you thought. And you don't have a choice once you've agreed to sell to someone, you are selling to them.
So in a seller's market, time is your friend because the market's going up.
Yeah.
So if you wait, you may hit a higher market. But in a buyer's market, time is not your friend. You really want to get in before the market drops.
Yeah. Now there is a chance, again, market changes and starts to boost up again. You've sold, and then the market starts to take off. And this is a rare scenario, but the market starts to take off, and then you get, the longer you wait, the wider the gap goes between your sell and your buy. So it always makes sense to try and sell and buy as close together as possible, so that you insulate yourself a little bit from that scenario. Okay. I'm going to move on to scenario 3. In scenario 3, it's usually a more balanced market or a buyer's market. And that's a situation where there's a certain type of strategy called a subject to sale offer. That's an offer where you're making an offer to buy someone's home, but only if you can sell your own. And so to have a seller agree to doing that usually means they don't have other options, which is why it would be usually a buyer's market at the time. Obviously, if they had other options than to take something that was subject to sale, they would. So another thing about subject to sale offers, in order to get a seller to agree to that, is sometimes you have to write a higher price than you would, or negotiate. You won't be able to negotiate as heavily to a low price because, of course, the seller is going to say, well, what about my risk for taking this offer? But a subject to sale offer means that the seller has agreed to sell to you. The seller has agreed to sell to you as long as you can sell your own home.
Right. And so it's really a non-offer in my mind. I mean, here's the thing. In a declining market, if a buyer writes an offer early on, then they have to give consideration to the seller and they have to pay a premium price. But if the market starts to go down and you don't sell your house, then it can be challenging for the seller who's accepted the offer, because now they have a great offer and they don't want to let it go. But if the market goes up, they are not inclined to keep the offer. So it's a bit of a guess of what's going to happen.
So in real estate, if a seller agrees to sell to you, they are bound to sell to you as long as you go forward with your conditions. The where a subject to sale offer differs a little bit is there is an additional clause included called a time clause. And that's commonly included. It's best practice. And that just means that if the seller actually gets another offer from a second buyer that they're happy with, and that offer comes to an unconditional point, it's essentially a backup offer. The seller can actually trigger this time clause and say to you, look, you may or may not have sold your home yet, but I've got this other buyer and I am going to trigger the time clause. You now have 24 hours or 48 hours, whatever was agreed to in the contract, to agree to walk away or agree to buy the home unconditionally, regardless of what your current sale is doing. You're looking confused. Is that clear?
No, I'm just, messages are poking up because it's evening here and it's morning there. So I'm just getting a lot of messages right now. It's all good.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah,
and
right.
I with the same name and I'm like,
I've got to say that's always like when they're very similar, close names and stuff, and then you start getting the names wrong or sending the emails to the wrong people. Ooh, bad. So subject to sale offers. These can really work in this kind of situation, but you will generally have to pay a premium to get a subject to sale offer accepted. The reason for the premium is that keeps the seller motivated to continue to work with you in case someone else comes along and brings one of those secondary offers. They may not want to work with that offer if they feel like they're still going to get a good value from your offer, and that you have a good chance of selling your home. So when we're writing a subject to sale offer, we're usually going to be also sharing some information about the property that's going to be put up for sale, how prepared it is. This is why Jane and I were talking earlier about being really prepared to have your home ready to go. Because if you do find a property you want to move on and make a subject to sale offer, we need to say, look, we're going to be on market in the next few days to a week, and not look, we're going to be on market in a month.
Right. We're ready to go. Let's pull the plug on this.
So in this scenario, you make your offer, then you sell your home, and then you end up buying. Once you've sold your home, then you remove that condition and you then fully agree to buy. So that's what that sort of timeline sort of alludes to. Now, if you have the deep pockets, and can afford two properties, and this usually works best again in a market where the market's going up, then you can eliminate some of the risk involved in buying before you sell. That risk that we said can happen if you can't actually sell. Go ahead.
So this is a good type of scenario for somebody who's an investor and they are okay with investing in a rental property and are capable of managing rentals. Because at the very end of the day, let's say your second property doesn't sell, the one that you originally own doesn't sell, you will have two mortgages maybe, or you have no equity on your first home, and so you have now a mortgage. You need somebody to pay that mortgage. So you really want to do this with people who are okay with risk. And often that's I realized over my years that some people are better at property management than others.
Right.
So
if you end up holding two properties, you're deciding at some point, and this is not your intended situation, but if somehow you end up holding two properties for a long period of time instead of the short period of time this is intending, then you've got to make a decision. Do you move into the new property, or do you rent it out? Do you move into the new property and rent out the old property?
Yeah. I mean, certain personality types don't do well in this situation. People who are highly nurturing often, like, they may get bad tenants because they feel sorry for the person who's wanting to come in, or maybe you're not assertive enough. So you have to really look at the personality style of your client and what is their stress.
Well, and we're talking here in this, I mean, we have realtors who watch the show, and we have clients who watch the show, and the public will watch the show. And we don't necessarily, like, you as the buyers and sellers need to look at and do your own self-assessment to decide, what scenario works best for me. Understand that and talk to your agent about what works best for you so you can come up with the best strategy, the best timing
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, Cheryl. One of my very first clients bought a rental, and I just realized, like, after they moved, after they got possession, and some situations in their life changed, was they were just not good property management people.
mhm.
But you can hire somebody to do that. It'll cost you between like 11 and 13%.
Yeah, property management is well worth it in the sense that it, takes it will take some of the profit out of your pocket, but it also allows you to just have more of a business situation set up instead of the handholding that may be required. Um, okay, so what else did I wanted to say something else about this one. This is a good situation. I think this is the situation that we should all strive for in our lives, where you buy your first home, you're able to pay down your mortgage, you get to a point where you can leverage and afford to buy a second home without having to sell your first. And that's the point where then you can watch the market and be ready to leap on good opportunities and become the investor buyer. So this isn't necessarily the scenario that we're talking today where it's your primary home and you're moving from one primary home to another. But when you're talking about being an investor, this is what I think most people strive to, is get to that point where you can actually afford a second home that you can keep.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, like, this is how I got into real estate. So we were buying, we realized that people were that the value of our house went up. We had the equity, and then we used the equity to buy another house. And it's not for the faint of heart, because there may be times when the tenant moves out and all of a sudden you don't have rent for that month. And
Mhm,
and it's or you have renovations. So you really have to look at this as a business plan,
mhm.
not and you have to be more structured. It's not like what feels good. It's what makes sense.
That's what makes sense. And in Victoria, for all you investors out there, you're not going to be generally finding a home in Victoria that covers the rent. You're buying in Victoria for the value appreciation. If you want something with a cap rate that will cover rent, you're going to have to go to some smaller markets where the risk is higher. But here, because property values tend to go up pretty steadily and be well insulated from the drops, especially in the core, I find it's really, really hard to find something for those first-time investors where they're going to actually be cash flow positive.
Right.
Okay, but at the same time, if they've gotten to the point where they can hold two properties, 3 to 5 years later, let's say 5 years later, now they've got a whole bunch of equity they didn't have before. They've used the power of leverage. Okay, scenario 5.
Right.
You've got a place you could live in the interim. That just opens up some more options for you. So whether you're selling or buying first, there's a small risk that the possession dates on both properties may not line up. This happens quite often, doesn't it, Jane?
Yeah, and so it's handy if you're comfortable, you can put your stuff in storage, and then unfortunately, where the mistake people make is they may sell and decide to rent, and then the market goes up really fast, which is what happened during COVID.
Mhm,
And so they got out because they were afraid of risk, and then they couldn't afford to get back in. So it's best to keep your toe in the same market,
yeah,
and maybe the dates don't line up, but we have a network of people behind the scenes that we could connect you with to help to find you a rental in the meantime, so that you do have a place to live, but you may have to store
yeah.
your stuff. And at
And
the
I
same
don't.
time, this is a cost you need to factor in your moving expenses.
Moving expenses could be, yes. So you made me a little nervous when you said we have a network of people and can help find rentals, because I've seen so many people in our various networking groups that are posting, and I've got someone who desperately needs a place to live. We have a really tight housing market right now for rentals as well. So it can be hard. So it's really important that if you are going to do this, that you have something lined up, a couch from a friend, a family member, your own other secondary suite somewhere in your rental property somewhere else where you can just move into it for a short time while you're doing something in the interim. But
And I just want to say, like, this is where really the introduction to people who are in the rental market, and just again keeping your eye on being prepared so that you're making decisions, informed decisions, and don't just expect everything to work out.
I've had a situation in the past where I had some clients and they'd agreed to buy a home, and there were certain dates lined up, and they had their home for sale. And when they got their offer, it was a good offer, but the dates just couldn't line up. So their money, they were going to have to be out, I think a week or two before they got possession of their new home. So they were really concerned about this. Like, what are we going to do? We're going to put our stuff in storage. We're going to have to find a place to live for a couple of weeks. The cost of hotels, the cost of storage, and all of this. And I said, okay, so this offers $10,000 higher than you were hoping for or willing to work with or whatever. I think maybe it was a competing offer situation. There were two to choose from. One had the right dates. One was higher money but didn't have the dates. I said, why don't you guys go to Mexico?
Oh yeah, I mean, I have clients who did that too.
Yeah, so they accepted the higher offer. They put their stuff in storage. They went off for a little vacation in Mexico before they came back and moved into their new home.
Yeah, and like, also, there's no saying that you have to buy in your own city. So, like, we put constraints in a little box around ourselves, and we need to be a little more open-minded, I think.
Well, of course. I mean, yeah. So this is all the scenarios I have. Jane, do you have anything else you want to add to this?
I guess my only advice is it's a game plan, guys. And, when you're talking with your realtor, examine all the scenarios. I think, Andrew, you put together a great presentation today, because I think it's not straightforward. And often a realtor can come up with a creative idea, not creative financing, but creative strategy to help you come out the other end being happy and satisfied and getting what you want. And everybody has a different story. So, we have to answer questions and be open with your realtor. We have a duty of confidentiality. We also have a fiduciary duty to take care of you. So
it's safe to talk to us, because we can give you our best advice only when we know what your situation is.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. Well, anybody have any questions before we go?
Nope. Why don't we just remind people, don't forget, everybody, that you can subscribe to our podcast. Yep.
Subscribe. Okay. Trying to line this up. Yeah. Please subscribe. Please check in every Monday.
So these are on YouTube. Andrew, do you want to just share your information? Where do people find you?
So they can reach me here, info@andrewplank.com. andrewplank.com is the website with lots of great information on there. Phone or text at 250-360-6106. And I'm on Instagram under the name Plank Andrew, where you'll find lots of pictures of my cat.
Okay, and I'm Jane Johnston. My number is 250-744-0775, coming to you from Portugal today, but I'll be back tomorrow. My email is briarhillgroup@gmail.com, or you can reach me at briarhillgroup.com. And you can also see all these videos and more and information on different neighborhoods at VancouverIslandTime.com. And I'm on Instagram as Realty Teacher Remax Victoria and Vancouver Island Luxury Living.
There you go.
All righty.
Amazing. We can do real estate from halfway around the world. So thanks for joining me today, Jane, and I will see you next week.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Take care and have a great week. See you next Monday at 10.